Hello, you guys. So we're going to be looking at literal equations today, and I will be completely honest. A lot of students really don't like this topic. They don't see the purpose in it, and I can kind of understand that because it's not something I widely practice. Um, I don't take formulas and resolve them for different variables. I just use the formula as presented to me. But this topic is tested, and so I have to make sure that I teach it, and that hopefully, if anything, you just get comfortable with it. Um, Honestly, if there was a workaround on Desmos, I'd teach you how to do that, but there's not a workaround. Okay, so you can look here on the right-hand side of your screen, and you can see some of the example problems that are going to be in your Delta Math assignment, and then I just kept it as simple as possible. And even then, you still may not like them. And then there's going to be some formulas here. Okay. Um, if you get stuck, take a picture and send me a picture of your work, and I'll be happy to either make another video or work out the problem or give you some hints to help you out. Because this topic does come back. All right. So before we jump into the problems on Delta Math, let's look at some formulas that we actually use a lot in Math 1, 2, and 3, not necessarily our science classes, because that's where you see a lot of formulas as well. So if I were to give you this first formula, y equals mx plus b, you may recognize that as slope intercept form. Okay. All right, so let's take this particular problem, and I want to solve for x. So I've got y equals mx plus b. I want my equation to now say x equals, and then whatever it equals. So you kind of, trying to think how I want to say this. You want to imagine there were numbers there. Okay, if that helps you. So if it helps you to think of m as being maybe a value of 2 and b as being a value of 4. And what would you do to solve for x? Okay, if that helps, okay, do that. So if I were to go over here, and you do not have to write this down, okay, but this is for somebody who's just maybe struggling. So if the problem had been y equals 2x plus 4, okay, and don't even worry about the y, but what would I do to get x by itself? Okay, what would be my first step in equation solving that would get x by itself? Well, hopefully you'd say, well, minus 4. Subtract 4 from both sides, okay? So let's do that, okay? So if I go over here and I look at y equals mx plus b, okay, so I've got this plus b, and if it had been a plus 4, I'm going to subtract 4. So I'm going to subtract b from both sides. Okay, so now it's right here, this very first step that a lot of students are like, oh, okay. There's no like terms here, so I can't tell you what y minus b equals. So I'm just going to recopy it. Y minus b equals mx. All right, because b minus b, okay, that does eliminate because that will equal 0. Okay. All right, so I'm getting there. Okay. Now I'm left with mx. Okay. And I want to get x by itself. Okay. So if I look over here, okay, think about it. If I had subtracted 4, I would be left with 2x. Okay. So if I had subtracted 4, that would be y minus 4 equals 2x. Okay. But like now what would I do here? What would I do with that 2 in order to get x by itself? Okay. Well, hopefully you're saying, well, you should divide. Okay. I am. That is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to divide by 2. So if I go over here, m is in the same spot as 2. So I'm going to divide both sides by m. So I'm going to divide by m. Now over here, I don't know what y minus b is, but I have to know what y minus b is first, and then I would divide that whole part by m. Okay. All right, so the m over m, that does eliminate because that'll equal 1. So I'm left with x. So I've got x by myself. That's awesome. That's exactly what I wanted. Okay. All right, now I got a bunch of letters over here. Okay. You're done. Okay. You're just going to recopy the bunch of letters just like this. So y minus b all over m. And that's your final answer. Okay. So I had y equals, and I said I wanted to solve for x equals. Well, now I know what x equals. X equals y minus b over m. Okay. All right. Now, if I completely lost you, you got to give me a couple more problems. Okay. It's all right if it didn't make sense on the first try. All right. So now let's take another one. Ax plus by equals c. Okay. That one may or may not be as familiar. This is standard form of a line. So this is standard form of a line. Ax plus by equals c. Okay? All right. Now, the problem when you see it on like Delta Math, it says solve the following equation for A. So they tell you very explicitly what to solve for. Sometimes what we do is that math teachers, we don't like to write directions. We like to keep things as short and sweet, as concise as possible. So you might see the problem, and then you see a semicolon, and then you might see the letter Y. Okay, that is very shorthand notation for me saying I want you to solve for Y. Okay, that's just how we are. If you notice, math is a lot of shorthand notation, like exponents. Exponents is shorthand notation. Okay, so I want to get Y by itself. All right, so I've got ax plus by equals c. Now, if it helps you to circle that y or highlight it so that way you're focused on that's what needs to be left behind. So after you do all this work on the left-hand side, y needs to be left behind. Okay? All right, so ax, okay? I got to do something with it. And I want to keep it together. I'm not going to separate it because a times x, think of that as if I were just multiplying two numbers together. So like 2 times 3, and that would equal 6. So this is really just, a number in disguise. Okay. Well, there's nothing written in front of it. So I get to assume, and it's okay that I'm assuming, that it's positive. Okay. So that it's plus ax and that it's a number in disguise. So if it's a plus number, then the opposite would be to subtract that number. So I'm going to minus ax, and over here I'm going to minus ax. Because notice, I still have my wall. I don't really like to draw the walls on these problems because these problems like expand. Okay, they're not a normal equation in terms of I'm not simplifying c minus ax. Okay, all right, so ax minus ax, well, that equals 0. So that cancels. So I bring down by equals, okay, and just like the last problem, I don't know what this is numerically. So c minus ax, okay. All right, now I've got b times y. Okay, so if you look back up here and you're thinking, well, what did you do when it was b times y? Well, that's similar to this m times x. Well, I divided by m. So I'm going to divide by b because remember, my goal was to have the y left behind. Okay, so I'm going to divide by b. Now, here's where we're going to mess up if you don't pay attention. This is why I keep saying, watch the videos. Okay, all right, so I'm going to divide Look how long I wrote my fraction bar, because this is the entire numerator and b is in the denominator. Okay? All right. So now b over b eliminates because that equals 1. So I'm left with y equals. There's nothing you can do with this. So you recopy it. C minus ax over b. Okay? All right. One last problem. Okay? And then I'm actually going to stop this video and I'll start up a new one that will start with us working on these delta math problems. Okay? All right, number 3. So y minus a equals m times x minus b. Okay? All right. Now, this is, okay, it's not exactly how I would write it because I wouldn't use the letters A and B, okay? But it works, okay? You'll see this in a slightly different style later on in this class, okay, where I have y1s and I have x1s, okay? But this formula is what we call, let me switch colors here, point slope form. So these are all formulas that we are going to actively use in this class coming up. Okay. All right. And I want to solve for B. Okay. Now, here's the thing. I could give you this problem and I could tell you I want you to solve for M. I want you to solve for X. I want you to solve for A. I can pick any letter I want. Okay. And if you can solve for any letter that you want in a problem like this, then you've got this. You're solid. Okay. You could probably do any problem I give you in terms of a formula and have you manipulate it. Because that's really what you're doing is you're manipulating it. Okay. All right, so if I want to get b by itself, b is currently trapped inside of these parentheses. So I need to get it out of the parentheses by doing the distributive property. So I need to multiply m times x, m times b. So y minus a equals m times x minus m times b. All right, and so I want to get b by itself. Okay, so just like the last problem, this mx, it's positive. Okay, it's representing a positive number. I just don't know what number it is. So I'm going to take the opposite of this, which is subtract. So I'm going to subtract mx from both sides. Okay, and if I were to cram my wall in there, so you can see that I've subtracted mx from both sides. Okay, all right, now it's going to look a little weird, but it's okay. We've done it right. Y minus a minus mx equals negative mb. Again, my nose keeps itching when I record videos. Okay, so notice what I did there. Okay, I just made one long subtraction problem because I don't know what any of these things equal and none of them are like terms. So I can't add them up. I can't combine them into making a this left side being like 2 terms or 1 term. I can't combine it. So this is just what I'm left with. Okay, and I'm trying to get b by itself. So that means I got to get rid of this negative m. So I'm going to divide by negative m. Okay, and to keep it balanced, I have to divide both sides. So in its entirety, I'm going to divide by negative m. All right, so the negative m's cancel. So I'm left with b equals, okay, I'm just going to recopy this, okay, because I'm done. Y minus a minus mx over negative m. Okay. All right, so I will come back in a second video. Okay, you'll actually probably looking at the ones on Delta Math thinking those actually don't look too bad. They're not. Those are actually easier. So if you understood these problems on Delta Math will be easier. Okay.